In just 3 decades, humanity endured not one but two global wars from 1914 to 1918. The First World War, the Great War, shook the foundation of Europe. Barely 20 years later, in 1939, the war plunged again into an even greater conflict, the Second World War. Together, these wars changed nations, destroyed empires, and shaped the modern world we live in today. This is the story of World War One and World War Two. Before 1914, Europe was a powder keg. Great powers were armed to the teeth. Alliances bound nations together. The triple entente of Britain, France, and Russia and the triple alliance of Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Italy. Nationalism ran high, empires clashed over colonies, and the Balkans simmered with unrest. The world was waiting for a spark. On June 28th, in 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was assassinated in Sarajevo. What might have been a regional crisis spiraled out of control. Austria-Hungary declared on Serbia. Russia mobilized to defend Serbia. Germany declared war on Russia and France. Britain joined the fight. Within weeks, most of Europe was at war. World War One was unlike anything before. It was a war of trenches, mud, rats, disease, and endless artillery barrages. New weapons changed the battlefield: machine guns, poison gas, tanks, and aircraft. Battles like Verdun and the Somme cost millions of lives for only a few miles of ground. It was a war of attrition, grinding nations down. South-centered in Europe, the war stretched worldwide. In the Middle East, Ottoman forces battled British and Arab troops. In Africa, European colonies became new front lines. At sea, German U-boats attacked Allied shipping across the Atlantic. This was truly the first global war. In 1917, two major events changed everything. The Russian Revolution forced Russia out of the war. Germany's submarine warfare pushed the United States to join. Fresh American troops gave the Allies the strength they desperately needed. By 1918, Germany was exhausted. A final offensive failed, and the Allies counterattacked. On November 11th, 1918, and Artemis was seen. The guns fell silent. The Great War was over, but at an unimaginable cost. 60 million died, empires destroyed, and generations scared. In 1919, the Treaty of Versailles punished Germany with heavy reparations and territorial losses. The League of Nations was created to keep peace, but lacked the power to prevent future conflict. The seeds of the next war had already been sown. Only 2 decades after the war to end all wars, the world faced another storm. Germany, humiliated by Versailles, turned to Adolf Hitler and Nazi Party. In Italy, Mussolini built a fascist empire. In Asia, Japan expanded aggressively, to dominate the Pacific. The Axis powers were born. and they would plunge the world into an even deadlier conflict. On September 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland with lightning speed blitzkrieg. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war. The Second World War had begun. Germany quickly conquered much of Europe. France fell in 1914. Britain endured the Blitz, standing alone against the Nazi war machine. In North Africa, Rommel's tanks clashed with Allied force in desert warfare. Meanwhile, Japan expanded its empire across Asia, bringing the Pacific into chaos. The war was now truly global once again. Three events changed the course of history. Japan's attack of Pearl Harbor in December 1941 brought the United States into the war. The Soviet victory at Stalingrad in 1943 stopped Hitler's advance. The D-Day invasion of Normandy in 1944 opened the war to liberate Europe. The Axis powers were now on the defensive. In May 1945, Germany surrendered after Hitler's downfall, but in the Pacific the war raged on. In August, the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing hundreds of thousands. On September 2nd, Japan surrendered. The Second World War has ended. The destruction was beyond imagination. More than 70 million dead, cities it rains, entire nations devastated. Yet out of the ashes the modern world was born. The United Nations was created to preserve peace. The Cold War divided East and West. Colonies around the globe began their struggle for independence. 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 World War I and World War II were the deadliest conflicts humanity has ever known. Together, they remind us of the fragility of peace, the dangers of hatred, and the price of war. Their lessons must never be forgotten. Remember history, share knowledge, subscribe for more.